Welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. Oh, snap!
Here's a sneak peek into what we're going to cover in this week's episode of the Echo Tips podcast. Open my talking books. This is the best way. Experience it. Well, hello, and welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. I'm your host, David Ward, an assistive technology instructor and general purpose IT trainer. It's good to have you returning listeners and you new listeners as well. Now, usually at this point, I would introduce our theme this week, but I'm going to leave it as a little surprise just a wee bit later. It is going to be an omnibus episode, so that means it's going to be a little bit bigger. Well, maybe a lot bigger. We'll see once I'm done recording how long it is. But first, though, I'd like to explain to our new listeners who are here, welcome to the show. You'll find that our show is a weekly show. It's 52 weeks a year. We cover everything related to the Amazon Echo. We're in our 7th season. And at the tail end of the show, I'll try and mention some ways you can go back and check out our back catalog, because often you may be trying to solve a particular problem or fix something, and I'll tell you where there's a website where you can easily pull up a listing of all of that on our blog. But we cover everything from games to skills to media to video playback, security functions, applications in the home for home automation, for parents, caregivers, seniors, children, just a whole wide gambit. And we're really looking forward to the rollout of the A-Lady beta now, which is very exciting, and hopefully we'll get early access to that, I hope, here soon, and I can demo some of that to you. I did mention in a past episode too, I'm going to be, I've ordered as of today what's called a home assistant voice, which can theoretically be, I've seen some demos plugged into ChatGPT and maybe potentially other large language models. So that really kind of augments its feature set. It's and a really powerful open source competitor to our A-Lady devices. And I've also, for your guys' good nature, I've also ordered the Google Nest Hub, not Nest Mini. I gotta get the naming right. They changed it several times. The Nest Mini, which is also a direct competitor to the A-Lady, since there are some limited versions of Gemini functionality rolling out on that if you are enrolled in that. So I thought that'd be a great way that I can play with that, show that to you guys, and maybe you can potentially compare to the A-Lady beta as we hopefully get access to that at some point. I don't know when that'll be. All right, so we're going to dive into our theme, as I mentioned earlier. And like I said, you new listeners, stay tuned to the end of the show if you want to find out a link to that listing, and also for your feedback about future episodes you guys would love to hear more about, topics or whatever the case may be. All right, so first off, I am going to immediately start saying the A-Lady name, so if you have an echo and hearing distance of my voice, I'm going to say that name here in just a second, so you may want to shut its ears off. They're amazing how they can hear you all across the house. So here we go. Alexa, open fireplace. Alrighty. Now that we got the fireplace going, we're set the mood for the theme of our show. Today's show is going to be a repeat of sorts, but a more in-depth dive to a topic we covered back in episode 329, which dealt with the Library of Congress's division, the NLS, National Library Services, development of a skill that I had a lot of positive comments for back in episode 329, and I'm very hopeful about this skill called My Talking Books. So this is a special skill, and this is kind of a special episode dealing with those that have print disabilities. That could be blind, low vision, anybody on the spectrum, maybe even print disabilities could include dyslexia, whatever the case may be. It could be the inability to flip a page with your arm due to tremors or some sort of motor disability. So there's a wide swath of reasons. This is a powerful nationwide service that's provided by the Library of Congress through the NLS division. And so we've been waiting for a long time for the A-Lady skill, which is entitled My Talking Books. And if you just want to see kind of a rough demo of that, go back and check out episode 329. But this episode is going to be an omnibus episode, and it's going to be I'm going to call it a loving critique. I know there's some very good people over there at the Library of Congress. I've talked to them. I've been on webinars with them. I've listened to them. They're very thoughtful people, engaged people doing amazing work for the community with Braille and audio materials and different things over there for those with print disabilities. So hats off to them. So I would say this is going to be a loving critique. But as the fireplace denotes as well, I'm going to have a little bit of a roast here as well. It's going to be a little bit of like a Kenny Rogers Roasters restaurant from years ago, where we got that chicken over the fireplace, and we're turning it on a spit and roasting it a little bit. So this is going to be a little bit of the roast of the My Talking Books skill on the Lady device. There's a lot of positive things to mention, but I think there's some very important things we need to mention as well. So let me shut that off now. All right, so let's delve right into the material. I'll usually have a transition here, or just to mention a call to action, but I'm going to just kind of skip that since this is going to be an omnibus episode. We'll go right into the meat of our material. So first off, at a high level, as I said, go back and check out episode 329 to kind of get an introduction. I didn't do a full how to set it up and everything, although I was very impressed by the setup method. There could be some ways you can make it easier, because I think they had to text me a code or something, and some people may not have access to text messages, or I don't know. There's probably some other ways that could be worked out, but I was pretty impressed by the functionality of the setup process, and especially maybe in comparison to things like the RNIB version, maybe even the Vision Australia version. I've been looking at different countries to compare, English-speaking countries, to kind of get a comparison of how their A-Lady skills work. And in fact, we're going to compare some of that today, because I just didn't want to be in a vacuum saying, I want this, I want that, I don't think that was done right, or something like that. I really wanted to say, have we looked at other people in this space and what they're doing? Maybe they've already solved the problem, and maybe we can go look at some of their stuff. So anyway, I am not a deep developer either, so I'll put that right up front. In other words, the guy who writes code and stuff like that. I have been a project manager of a team that developed a skill for the radio reading service here in Virginia, but I just wasn't deep into the code and stuff like that. And I really haven't coded anything for a number of years since iOS, where I had an app called Braille Sonar. But I'm not, even then I was an amateur programmer. So what may or may not be possible in some of my proposals here may be far-fetched, and I don't know. I would hope the APIs and different things are rolling out allow certain functionality like I'm describing, but it may not be. And that's another reason I go and look at other sources to see how they did it. And if they can do this, why is My Talking Books not doing it? So that's kind of an interesting kind of philosophical question there. Okay. But anywho, so that's my little caveats I'm putting right up front. Okay. So first off, positive things about My Talking Books skill from the National Library Service. One, like I said, setup was great. The back-end functionality, as in how fast it could pull up a listing of books based on author, based on title. You can go back and check out that demo. Very snappy. Very impressed. Very impressed. And I especially mention that as a hallmark because the National Library Services, I don't know, due to budgets or what exactly is going on, has notoriously had problems. I would say real robust redundancy, fallback, low latency problems. And you can still find that out at their website. You literally can hit the enter key and you're standing there and you can count how long it takes to go to the next web page. Now, admittedly, that's probably not the interface a lot of people use anymore. But honest to God, back in the day and even today, I think if you use the actual web page interface, which is an old way of doing it, it definitely feels like it's running on Hillary Clinton's server in the mop closet somewhere, and is just not up to par. Now, as they rolled out a more comprehensive engines and servers where you had an app on your Windows computer, Bard Express, and you could have the Bard mobile app on your iPhone or Android, I think they probably were using a different back-end service, which was a little more responsive, because it seems I've never really had huge questions about it, although they do seem to do quite a bit of maintenance now and again. That's a little questionable. But anyway, that's a long way to say the My Talking Book skill on the A-Lady, super, super responsive as far as pulling up the listings. The moment I say start the book or play the book, just very little lag time. I mean, not anything really hardly to mention. Audible, Amazon's own service, probably doesn't perform any better. And they probably, honestly goodness, probably using an Amazon S3 servers to do it. So that's my kudos. That's my positive. Okay, so now we're going to get into it. First point would have been, why didn't you? Magazines might have been a much easier way to approach this subject versus delving deep into books. Not that I don't appreciate it. I really want access to books and don't really care much about magazines. But it seems like they really bit off a lot to chew on here. But that's just my personal point. The real elephant in the room we want to mention here, though, is... Okay, so let's delve right into this big one. And I'm just going to demo this for you guys. Alexa, open My Talking Books. So this is the best way. Experience it.
Welcome back, David, to My Talking Books. What can I do for you? Say, continue, if you want to keep going with what was in progress.
Continue.
Playing now.
Okay, this should be 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I believe.
Rifles, torpedoes.
Yeah, that's
After the torpedoes, underwater battering rams, and then the reaction.
All right, so here we are, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
But the theory that it was some war machine fell through before the statements of various governments. Since it was a matter of public interest with the...
There we go, I'll turn it down a little bit. Okay, so, one, that's a little bit of an improvement where you said just continue. They used to have some really obnoxious language in there. I don't think they have anymore, but if it does surface, it used to be like restart or resume. Honestly, this kind of app needs to be Fisher-priced. 100 different ways Fisher-priced. And by that I mean like Mattel children Fisher-priced. You want to make this as simple. You say continue, you say resume, you say whatever. The mistake they had originally with the restart, they'd say, would you like to restart the book, is they mapped that to another command at times, and if it made an error, it would literally restart the book. I have had that happen. That should never, ever happen. Even if that's going to be a command inside the app, it should require confirmation. If I say restart, it should say, are you sure, yes or no? And then do that. But they have improved this. Just you say continue or whatever. But I would encourage them to have as many possible phrases, talk to AI, resume, continue, whatever, to do it. Now, here's what's interesting. Now, watch this. Let's say I want to move to the next chapter. I think I'm in chapter 1 right now.
My opinion.
So I'll turn it back up.
Could still be denied. I confined myself to complete
Alexa,
skepticism.
Next.
But I soon found myself driven into a...
So it didn't do anything there. That's interesting. See, it didn't go to the next chapter, it didn't go to nothing.
The Honorable Pierre
Alexa,
Arnoux.
Previous.
Previous is not supported.
Okay.
Of the Paris Museum.
So this is a weird quirk of the way this is designed, is you pretty much have to come back out of playback, and you have to say pause.
I spoke because
Alexa,
I could not remain silent.
Pause.
What now?
Next chapter.
Jumping forward 1 chapter.
Okay, that did work. Next.
Chapter 3.
Okay, that's good.
As Monsieur wishes.
Now watch this. Alexa, pause.
What now?
Jump to chapter 1.
Sorry, I couldn't find chapter 1. Perhaps you wanted to say, Go to Chapter 1.
Before the arrival of J.B. Hobson's letter,
Alexa,
I had
pause.
no more...
What now?
Go to Chapter 1.
Chapter number 1.
Let's see if we get it. Should.
Chapter 2.
Oh,
the pros
still
and
ain't quite
cons.
get it.
When these events took place, I was on my way back from...
So you get a little idea there about the feedback. Let's try something, too. Also skipping around by time codes, or like jumping 5, or, this often happens to me. I'm like, go back a minute, I want to hear that again. So let's try that. Once again, I have to pause.
Spending 6 months in
Alexa,
Nebraska.
Pause.
What now?
Jump forward 5 minutes.
Jumping forward 5 minutes.
Okay, that worked.
15 miles below the surface.
Let's try it again.
How are such animals built? We can scarcely even
Alexa,
guess.
pause.
What now?
Go forward 5 minutes.
Jumping forward 1 chapter.
See, that didn't work. Unless the chapter was 5 minutes
3.
away.
As Monsieur wishes.
Alexa, pause. Let's try something else.
What now?
Fast forward 5 minutes.
Sorry, I missed that. If you want to jump while reading, say, jump forward 8 minutes, or jump backwards 2 minutes. Say, resume reading, or options for more commands.
Options? Just curious.
Available options include details, subjects, summary, structure, jump forward or backward a time, next or previous, table of contents, list next, list previous, go to a chapter or section, restart section or chapter or book, create bookmark, list bookmarks, add to wish list, add to one of your bookshelves, go to sleep at the end of this part or after a certain time. You can change the navigation level with increase or decrease level, which will affect how next and previous jump around. You can set the playback speed to normal or slow or fast or very fast. Say a command, or resume reading, or user guide for further details.
Resume. Okay, so we'll get back
now.
into it again. Come on. You can do it. I'm just saying how responsive
3
you are.
seconds before the arrival of J.B.
So I'm going to turn it down a little bit again. Okay, so here's the quirk, is you got to do this pause thing to do any kind of interactions with going backwards and forwards. Also, it's a multi-step process to exit the skill. If I just said exit right now or cancel, it will actually do weird crashy-like stuff. Let me give an example here. Let me show you how weird it could go.
My country, my friends, my little apartment near the botanical gardens, and my precious collection.
Alexa, cancel.
Leaving my talking books. Bye for now.
So there's the jingle.
Me back.
Now look at that.
I forgot everything.
It's still
Weariness, friends, and collections, and without a second thought, I accepted the American government's offer. Besides, I thought all roads lead back to Europe,
Alexa,
and maybe the unicorn...
Stop.
What now?
Cancel?
Leaving my talking books.
So I hadn't really left it, even though it played the little jingle that said I had left it. Okay, so that right there is a world of torment and confusion. This multi-step having to exit, pause it, stop it, then say cancel to exit. By the way, I understand that may be a default command, cancel, in most apps, but nobody uses that command. Nobody. Exit should be mapped to it. Quit shouldn't. Full stop. For the love of God, a lady, stop. There should be like at least 20 different commands that just full on exit take you out of the thing, because it's really nuts. And what's crazy too is you could come back to it and and it still would be up and operational. You're almost like stuck in it. And I have never seen that with any other A-Lady skill, except ones designed by Amazon specifically, maybe with that in mind. And that was the A-Lady beta back in early 2024, where you go into it and you have like a continuous conversation mode. But even then, I thought it was a bad interface design. So this is problematic. It may even be a violation of Amazon's developer guidance. You should be able to get out of this thing at some point relatively easily. Okay, so here's the question: am I setting the bar potentially too high? And that was a question I asked myself. So I started digging around, and this is not easy. I tried to find recordings of different talking books for the blind, vision impaired, and print impaired in Britain, in the United Kingdom, in Australia, in Canada, and find similar demos to see how they worked or didn't work in these contexts. So we're actually going to go to a recording that I pulled off of YouTube from Galloway. There'll be attribution and a link to the full recording of Galloway's demo of RNIB's talking book skill. And then we'll also play one from Robin Christofferson on the Dot to Dot podcast, where he also did a demo. Now, both of these demos are relatively older, and so there may have been future innovations in the RNIB skill for the A-Lady. But this would give us kind of a little food for thought about how it could work and maybe work better. All right, so let's go to that right now.
Table of contents.
Alexa, start.
Okay, I'm going to leave you with your book. When you are done reading, say cancel.
This book has been kindly donated to RNIB by Penguin Random House. It has been made under Section 31B of the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988,
Here we go.
as amended by the Copyright and Rights and Performances, the Disability Regulations 2014, for use by persons meeting the criteria set out within these regulations, and may not be further copied, including any electronic copying or transmission. The copyright
Alexa,
Penguin
next.
Thank you to Penguin Random House for kindly making this audiobook available for free.
There you go. Then the book started now.
Brought to you by Penguin.
Redhead by the Side of the Road by Anne Tyler.
Alexa, next chapter.
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
Alexa, next.
Chapter 1.
Alexa, next. Okay, so it can be a little bit fiddly at times.
Chapter 2.
There you go. Yeah. So chapter 2 now.
Early the following morning.
Alexa,
he was just
previous.
Chapter 1.
Yeah, there you go. Alexa, pause.
See you soon.
So you can pause your book. If you want, you don't say next chapter, as I did, and I got that wrong. You just say next. So if you say next, you can go to the next chapter. And if you say previous, you can go back. You can go to the previous chapter.
Okay, now that we've heard that one, I want you to hear one more before we do a little more commenting on it. And this is from Robin Christofferson of the Dot to Dot podcast. Both of these kind of highlight some of the same capabilities, but also just kind of reiterate and confirm that this does work this way or had worked this way. Let's go to Robin's demo here too.
Find Murder on the Orient Express.
We have 2 books matching. Murder on the Orient Express. You can interrupt me at any time by saying, Alexa, say the number matching the book on the list. To pick Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, say 1. To pick Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, say 2.
1. They must be
You picked Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. To read from the beginning, say start. Or, choose one of the following. Table of contents, or description.
Start.
Okay, I'm going to leave you with your book. To call me back, say cancel.
This book has been kindly donated to RNIB free of charge by HarperCollins.
Murder on the Orient Express. by Agatha Christie. Read by Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, Kenneth Branagh.
Part 1. The Facts.
Alexa,
1.
Stop.
Until next time.
Okay, there you go. And you've got all the normal book reading functions, skip forward, skip backwards. You heard there that you can change the skip level by time, by section, by chapter, that sort of thing. Cool, there you go. And obviously it will remember where you cancelled or where you stopped, and it will pick up that, or at least it'll offer. Next time if we opened it, it would say, do you want to carry on listening to Murder on the Orient Express, etc., etc.
Okay, guys, so that gives us a little food for thought. So you may have caught on what was interesting, and that was you didn't have to do this double stop thing. Once you stopped it, it was stopped, right? As best as I could tell, I didn't see anything there, and he said clearly, both of them said, if you go back into the app, it would prompt you to continue. Now, admittedly, if I do that, it'll pick up with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as well. It'll say, would you like to continue? I could say continue. But what's they didn't deal with is that exiting problem where they had to pause, stop, cancel, whatever, stand on one foot and jump up and down. Please stop. They didn't have to do all of that. And they had did you also catch too, that I believe that there was there in Galloway's, the simple ability, and Robin confirmed this as well, that you could just, while playback was going on, you could say, hey, lady, next, or previous. And you could do that jumping back and forward and not have to do this pause routine to do it. So I think that was a much more native and simpler interface. That's not to say for some publications maybe you don't need a more advanced navigation technique, and of course they tackle some of that as well, because the underlying technology that's being used here is Daisy Books. So think of a study guide for how to become a certified computer technician or something. You may have a very complex manual, and you already know chapters 1, 2, 3, but you don't understand the point under section 5, subpoint A. So an ability to jump around in a publication. Another good example of that would be the Bible. That's a great example, where you may need to jump from Old Testament to New Testament. And then once you're in the New Testament, you want to go to the third book in the Gospels. So you need to, go to Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So you need different types of nav controls to get there. And once you're in the book, you want to go to the chapter. So then you need a chapter navigation. Now, I think NLS has all of that maybe potentially built in, or is going to at some point. I know RNIB had a unique approach to that. But most times, if you're just reading a novel, just doing next or back would be sufficient. And I think you noticed in my playback, you had say go to or jump to, or no. All of that should work. And if I say jump 5 minutes, or I say go 5 minutes, I say fast forward 5 minutes, all of those should be covered. Every imaginable, conceivable nomenclature should be probably considered there. And I don't know, and the ability and the need to pause to do that, very troublesome. And I like the simple fact that when it's done, it stops. It just exits, and you don't have this multi step process to cancel. Now, I do love that the My Talking Books has the little jingle. I think that's very important. And if anything, I think I'm going to comment on that some more. Let me see if that's in my notes. Okay, yes. So that was one of the next points I was going to mention. Okay, so let me demonstrate to you. There's a plethora of things I had in mind here, but an easy way to demonstrate this is, let me make sure the volume's up so you guys can hear this. I'm going to open up another skill. Alexa, open random voice.
Here's your voice. Pleased to meet you. I'm voice number 5. Ask for another voice to meet my friends.
So, I think there could be a lot of innovations in here and things that would make it more an intuitive interface if there were a lot more sound cues and there was more thoughtful use of voices. So this skill demonstrates that it is possible that you can open up a skill and I know I've seen it before, but I had to go searching to find a skill that would do this, that you can have it open to a different text-to-speech engine that Amazon provides, and I don't think there's any added cost for that. Okay, so going back some years ago, one of the things that I really enjoyed about a competitor to the A-Lady was the Google Assistant, which was later then renamed the Google Nest Assistant or Nest Mini and then just Nest. I don't know. But anyway, it's an appliance just like the A-Lady or the Echoes that you can talk to. Now, one of the things I immediately noticed about it is often if you would go into their version of skills, it would change to a different voice. And that is a subtle clue that you're no longer in the main interface, that you're now in a special skill. And the A-Lady has never been by default configured that way, but later they did. I do believe Amazon added a number of different AI voices or different voices that you could use. And you can find them demonstrated in different skills. And that I think is a subtle but important, especially if you're going to stick with this model that you got where you're kind of stuck in there until you say pause, and then after you stop, then you got to say cancel. You need all the clues that you can get that you're no longer in the main A-Lady interface. And one of the other things that makes that important is inside the skill, there isn't an easy way. You can't just use a verbatim, I think, A-Lady command to change the global volume setting that would change the book's volume setting. Now, I find it a little weird. There actually is a whole set of proprietary volume controls. And I don't even know what the command is. I mean, you could look it up in the manual, but it's like, something turn book volume up, turn book volume down. Again, I went and looked at the RNIB. Not a thing. There's just a global volume. You change the global volume and it changes the volume. Now, I'm blanking on whether you could do it while the book was doing full-on playback or you had to stop it. But you did have a global control. So there wasn't separate controls, which I find much, much better. If that's something that could be resolved, that should. But the voices, I believe, would certainly lend credence and in a much more native, like, you're not in the A-Lady, you're in the My Talkings thing. It would give you all that clarity. So I think that would be a super easy thing that could be done. On top of that, I think sound cues are very important. So on the actual physical players, we have beeps, we have bops, we have these little things that denote that our action is being carried out. I think, you might think of they're superfluous, but actually I think they just help with a cognitive load that yes, my command was being followed, or no, it was. And that could be you could literally use the same beeps and bops from the players, or you could, make your own thing, like, fast forward or rewind is a swishing sound, or maybe like, changing chapter sounds like a page in a book flipping or something. Any kind of way to denote that your action is being carried out the way you anticipated it being carried out, I think would be very, very beneficial, along with a different voice. Now, on top of that, there is a list of settings inside the app. That could be one where you could customize the voice for the main UI, UX interface. Maybe if you didn't, I know with some of my students that had different hearing impairments, maybe they could hear a male voice, a deeper voice, better, and then in other circumstances, they could hear a female voice better. And those simple changes in pitch and different things and intonation made a big difference for them. So having the ability to change that, modify that, I think would be good. I think the default configuration, though, should not be whatever the main system is. If there's a way inside the programming language to say use a different one than the default, I think that would be great. Even if you just had to lock it into one, I think that would be a step in the right direction, especially with the current interface where it's very difficult to get out of it or whatever. And you could think about maybe even having separate voices for default in different aspects of the app, like the help section could be a different voice. Or maybe the tooltips kind of could be a different voice. I don't know, that might be a little confusing. The listing voice could be a different voice. I think that's a little overboard. Maybe just the help section being a different voice could be different to kind of denote that you're in the help section. But anyway, those are just a few ideas. I think sounds could be very beneficial, especially in the basic navigation, volume adjustments, navigation techniques. I think that could be very useful. Now, I do want to say, right here, NLS and the guys that have developed these, RNIB and Vision Australia and Vision New Zealand, I've been faced in some respects with an impossible task, because AI is going to be potentially capable of making this so much easier with a natural interface concept. And a lot of these hurdles could be easily probably overrode, assuming we don't have these really obnoxious things with playback and where you have to pause and, to fast forward and stuff like that. Obviously, there must be a way to get around some of that because, like I said, RNIB has seen to do that. All right, so let's go down to the next item on my list here. Okay, the next thing on my list is, this was a design choice, but I just want to share this with you guys. Alexa, open my talking books.
Welcome back, David, to my talking books. What can I do for you? Say, continue, if you want to keep going with what was in progress.
Recently added books.
Bard recent. First 10 of 678.
Yeah.
1. The King of Adobe, Ryas Lowe, Pez T. Harina, Lost Prophet of the Chicano Movement, by Lorena Oropesa, audio not yet available. 2. Down Through the Years, by Gene Shepard, audio not yet available. 3. La Conquistadora, Unveiling the History of Santa Fe's 600-year-old religious icon, by James Chevalier.
Number 1.
You selected The King of Adobe, Ryas Lowe, Pez T. Harina, Lost Prophet of the Chicano Movement, by Lorena Oropesa. Narrator, Bruce Hare. Say, play, or say options for more commands.
Play? I didn't think it was available.
This book is not yet available for reading from this device.
Yeah, that's right.
You can download it from your Bard mobile app on your smartphone.
Cancel.
Leaving my talking books. Bye for now.
Okay, we're going to revisit this listing option here for another setting in a second. But first off, recently added books. So now, in a webinar, this was mentioned by the personnel at NLS, that there is a lag time, maybe 12 hours, 18 hours, maybe a day at maximum, between them migrating the books from the standard services, which they typically provide. I guess that would be the website, the old-fashioned website, and the Bard Express, or the mobile apps, the back end that the mobile apps on iOS or Android interact with. So while those may have access to that book I just tried to play, there is a transcoding or something going on while they're migrating those new books. Say there's 20, 30 50 new books. They're migrating those over to the cloud so that they can be played by the A-Lady skill. So there's a lag time in it. And maybe that's a standard production issue or whatever. So their programmatic choice here was just a list not available. Now, it was a little obnoxious because I went into the thing and it actually said, do you like to play it? It should have known better not even to offer that to me. I think if you were going to do it this way, it should say, offer a wish list right then and there. I mean, this is basic programming, people. Not available. Change the context of the interface to say, would you like it to add to the wish list? Now, if I had asked for options, I would have listened to about 6 or 5 different options and then eventually would have said, would you like to add it to the wish list? Why, yes, because it's the only thing I can do with it right now. It's not available. Personally, I want to go back to my statement earlier about Fisher Price. You want to make this as easy as possible. There in programming is a concept called feature creep. There's nothing wrong later with adding features, but they need to be done judiciously and thoughtfully. Everything in the kitchen sink is trying to be thrown, it looks like, at this by the development team and the UX team. And it looks like to me that while the back end is very well methodically designed and responsive, the people that are working on the UX on the front end are not... I think it needs more thoughtful design. So anyway, so this recent books is a perfect example. It's basically useless to an Amazon Echo user at this point, because you go in and the first 10 books it's rattling off. Like I had a student, this is what she used to do every time she came to the classroom. She would fire up the computer, she'd look at the most recent books. And that was her way of always triaging new books. But if she did it on her A-Lady, it's a worthless list. It's like, yeah, this is the books that are coming in another day. And then when she would come back tomorrow, they probably wouldn't be on there. They might be on the second page or third page of the list. But, so I think it could be real easy with some JavaScript or whatever they're using on the back end here, that if book is not available, don't read it off in the listing. Create an artificial throttle that literally lists only the recent books that are now available through this A-Lady service. Now, if somebody later asks, why am I not getting my recent book on my iPhone? I'm getting a different list on my book on my iPhone than I am getting on my A-Lady. Well, that's because there's a little bit of a lag time before they get to the, I don't think that would be a hard question to answer, and not many people would even probably notice. They would probably only use one device or the other. And like I said, the only way I think if you really wanted uniformity is please just offer to put it on the wish list right up there up front. But even that, I personally think is a little, it's a little obnoxious. I think you want them all to interact the same way. The recent list to be the recent as much as you can, or mean the same thing across all devices. And, I think to your average user, up until the A-Lady, recent books meant recent books I can actually listen to, right? And that's not true on the A-Lady. The recent books are books you can't listen to because most of them are not available yet. So I think that's a design gaffe. It shouldn't probably be that way. I think a better way would be just to have a built-in code that says don't list the book until it's actually available. And if there's any other kind of hiccups along the way, the fifth book in the listing isn't going through the process right, the system would account for those faults, and nobody would need to know except for the engineers on the back as well. Now, let's go and check out another listing problem that I don't like, or I just say better UI could be used. Alexa, open my talking books.
Welcome back, David, to my talking books. What can I do for you? To read your last book, say, resume reading. Ask, most recent book, to know its title and reading position.
Find books by Jack Campbell.
Search for books by Jack Campbell. No exact match found.
I probably gave
Results
that wrong.
for similar books. First 10 of 4,662.
Yeah, I should have said.
1. Tarnished Knight, Perilous Shield by Jack,
that's right.
Naval Officer, Campbell. 2. Dauntless by Jack, Naval Officer, Campbell. 3. Victorious by Jack,
Okay, so
Naval
let's select
Officer,
one of these.
Campbell. 4. The Lost Fleet,
Alexa,
Beyond the Front.
Number 1.
You selected Tarnished Knight, Perilous Shield by Jack, Naval Officer, Campbell. Narrator, Patrick Downer. Say, play, or say options for more commands.
Cancel.
Leaving my talking books. Bye for now.
Now, I might not have done the right type of search. I think it might be the phrase list, or I might be confusing with RNIB, list books by Jack Campbell. But either way, we got a listing of books. That was my point. So one of the interesting things in the interface there is it is pretty redundant and doesn't help you too much. So like when I went into the book, it told me the title. It had already told me that. It told me the author. It had already told me that. The only added information it gave me was the narrator. Now, I think that's good. Some people listen by narrator. But I think you could have some additional information in there for, like, at the very least, list the genre that the book is in. Is this science fiction? Is this Native American history? Is this American history? Is this a bibliography? Is this or a biography? I mean, what is this? What categories is this in? I think something like that could potentially be helpful. Now, you probably don't want to load down the user with too much information. And maybe this could be something where you have customizations in the settings. But as of right now, it pretty much just repeats the exact same thing it said with the singular addition that it tells you what the narrator is. And then it offers you the play and then the options. Now, if you go into the options, you do get quite a few different things you could have. Currently in the settings panel, there is a standard mode and I believe an advanced mode. Now, the labeling in this, and I don't think they've built this out yet, but the nomenclature is that when you get in advanced mode, it could pare down some of the verbose help tips that it has everywhere throughout the system. Now, I actually turned it on and played with it a little bit, not much, maybe for like 5 minutes. I couldn't really tell any kind of significant difference. But that, again, I believe is an opportunity for where audio cues could be much more useful, to just ding and a prompt. That now you're in a menu control or something like that, I think could be useful, especially if you start to strip out some of the help settings. Although I think audio cues in general, especially with playback, could be very useful. Okay, let's see what's next on my list. Okay, the next thing I had on my list was connected with the help and the tutorials. Now, they seem to build this out pretty cool. If you ask for help, it's almost like a search routine. You say help with playback or help with whatever, finding books or whatever, and it will come back. Now, how useful it is, I don't know. I haven't drilled into it a lot. It does seem a little fragile. Once again, that could be an opportunity to build it out, make it more Fisher Price with 50 different ways to say, I'm trying to find a book, with the help routine. And, you just, you could have AI do it for you. Figure out, different ways people could phrase this. Now, under the tutorials, I think that has a lot more potential because it really allows you to drill into different subjects like wish list, bookshelves, streaming history, and other things like that. Now, I went through that list, a tutorial, to get a better idea for how some of these features may or may not work. And one thing I noticed about it is it's not an iterative list. So what it would do is it had like 50 items in there, or 30 or like 50, I think. It had a lot of items in there, but it would only read them out 5 at a time. So it's a lot like the book listing section. But where it was a little more confusing, I think, is it wouldn't iterate consistently. So item would go 1, 2, 3, 5. The 5th item would be about about bookshelves. And then if you said next, it would go to the next listing, and then it would say 1, how to make a bookshelf. 2, how to delete a bookshelf. 3, how to add things to a bookshelf. And it would start the numbers all over again. Now, it's a tiny little thing, but I don't think the main book listing feature looks that way. It actually goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, it does 10 at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you say next, and then it'll go 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, if anything, I would use the recurring iteration over there, where it repeats. But here, when you want to jump right into it, maybe like you're slowly going through all the tutorials, you could just easily say go to 7, even though you're in 1 through 5, and it would jump right to it. So I think that could be beneficial. The other thing I noticed, and again, this may be a build-out issue, but I think this is a faux pas to put this in an active live beta that's an open beta to everybody in the United States with potentially up to 5,000 people using this. I went into the tutorial section, and then I went to bookshelf, mostly because I was like, for the love of God, what is bookshelf? I know what a bookshelf is on my iPhone. I know what a bookshelf is on my Bard Express app. Why is there a bookshelf in the streaming appliance? That doesn't seem to make any sense to me. So I went into, I asked it about bookshelf, and you know what I got? Nothing. I went to create a bookshelf. I got nothing. I think I probably went to delete bookshelf. I got nothing. So either the tutorial section is broken entirely, or there was nothing actually documented yet on the back end with the help files for those topics. Now, I did end up going and digging into it, and it looks like the way they're going to build this out is bookshelves will be a neat little thing where you can create, I could make like a science bookshelf, which I did. You have a default bookshelf, and then maybe you could make a novels bookshelf. Now, the beauty of that is maybe you're studying science books for high school or in college, and you can keep that listing of books you're trying to read in one list, and another list would consist of books that you're just reading for fun, novels or something like that. Now, I do see the advantage in that, but I do see, once again, I think they're trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink at something out of the gate, and I don't think that's probably a good idea. Bookshelf had a very specific meaning on devices and on the app, and I think until you really move beyond that, you probably don't want to iterate on that until there's a uniformity across all of the devices. Now, for all I know, with the new NLS physical Bard player they're going to be rolling out, the 2.0 product, maybe it has those multiple bookshelves, and maybe that's what we're doing. We're stepping forward to a whole new feature set. And, perhaps that would make some sense. But here's where it gets a little conflated for me too, is you can have a bookshelf, a default bookshelf, which is all I had to begin with, and I never used it. I always went to streaming history, and I would just go back and see what the last 10 books were that I was playing. I didn't have really a need to divvy out, separate different categories. But I feel it's a little conflated, so I don't know. I mean, maybe make the streaming history and the default the same, and then if you need to build out and create separate bookshelves, do that. But confusingly enough, I found out that my default bookshelf and my streaming history were separate. And so I'm not too sure how that happened. The listings weren't identical. So that was a little quirky. So, all I can figure out is there must have been an algorithm at play, because the book it listed in my bookshelf was a book that maybe I had listened to 15 minutes of, while the book or I might have that backwards, or the streaming history listed a book that I had just played like maybe 5 seconds of because I was experimenting with books for you guys to practice this stuff. So I don't know. If they could bring some simplicity or uniformity or even get rid of some of that extra stuff, I mean, it's okay, maybe you roll it out later, but I think you need to keep it very simple to begin with. All right, let's move on to the next thing on my list. Okay, so I just wanted to end on this note. I'm looking here at my list. There has been a tremendous amount of work done into this, a lot of expense. I know a lot of people are caring and concerned about this. The feedback that I'm providing here through this podcast, I did not provide through the typical mail channel thing, and maybe that would have been the best way to do it. I don't know. But I felt like a lot of these UX, UI decisions really call for more of a almost auditor approach to step back and look at this, and also look at some other skills out there in this space to say, I think we're making it really confusing for people. And in Ireland, Scotland, and Britain, they did it a different way, or in the entire, Australia or New Zealand, they did this differently. Maybe we should do it differently too. I think there's some food for thought there, and maybe really looking at some of your UI, UX. They might be good back end developers, but they may not be cut out for this kind of front end work like this. But I did note here. One of the features that's in here, actually it's a feature I haven't played with at all, is speed control. And I think that is potentially very cool. The ability to change the speed, that probably is not a simple function on a streaming device. So I think that is super duper. The other thing I would comment on is these book services, I think, have a lot of pull. I think they could group their efforts together. And even if there's certain API calls or controls that are not built into the current A-Lady, the A-Lady is going to be iterating a lot over the next year and a half with the new AI-infused goodness. They have a new director over there, Panos Panay. I think they could engage them about a much more functional, almost native interaction. Anyway, so that is kind of my rundown, my critique of the Bard. I said Bard. That's the old term for the iOS app. Not Bard Express, but for the My Talking Book skill from the NLS, the National Library Services. And I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have any thoughts or comments, I'd love to hear your feedback at ecotipspodcast at CERT, Dr. DOCTOR.com. And or if you would like to look at the listing of all our past episodes, you can go check that out at certdoctor.com. Click on blog, and then one of the recent blog listings you'll have pretty much all of our podcasts going back to episode 1. But that'll wrap things up for this week, and I do appreciate your patience and me going through all of that. Until next time, it's time to turn the ears of your Echo on, start practicing some of the many things you've learned. I'm David Ward, and we do thank you for listening.